Welcome to M Squared TechCast, a live show offering the latest news and interviews with the people driving business, technology, and politics in Michigan. Now, your hosts, Matt Roush and Mike Brennan.
All right, so we're starting things off with our attorney, our friend from Traverse City, Enrico Schaefer. And, you've started out, talking about a bunch of different things over the years on this show, but today you want to talk about social media and influencers.
Yeah.
And I've always wondered, how does one get to be an influencer? Why don't we start with that?
Well, you have to be popular, so that's number one.
Lets me out.
You're going to need a social media account, number two,
Okay.
and you're going to need a lot of followers, number three. And if you get those things, you put them together, now you can influence people online through your account, what you endorse, what you say, what you push, which restaurants you love, and which brands you love.
This is sort of a new kind of marketing that's entirely a creature of social media, right?
Entirely a creature of social media, and it's a new kind of marketing. It's been happening for a few years now. I mean, like 5 years ago, I think I had a client that had a facial mask for young women between like 15 and 19. They would pay $5,000 for an endorsement from an influencer online, and they do $80,000 worth of business in the next hour.
Wow.
So it's really great marketing when you can put the pieces together.
Wow, amazing, huh? Describe some of the Detroit influencers that you think do this particularly well.
Sure. So in Detroit, we've got a lot of really good factors that line up for social media influencing and marketing and branding. Number one is Detroit is just hot, right? So the people in Detroit, long-suffering, are now part of this rebirth that is everyone nationally and globally seems to understand that Detroit is a great place to be. And we didn't always have that reputation, and so it's trend. It's a hot place to be. So in Detroit, you've got, as part of that, really interesting places and people and events that are getting hashtagged. So if you want to know what the core of influencing is, it's basically a hashtag that is a shout out to something. So hashtag Detroit, hashtag cool Detroit, hashtag whatever Detroit, Motown. So these types of things are really starting to take hold. I did a little bit of research the other week that I found really fascinating. You think of some big cities like Cleveland and Austin and Denver, all high-tech cities, right? All really popular cities. Austin's growing like crazy, and they've got all these huge tech companies there. But guess who has more hashtags than Austin?
I'm thinking Detroit, right?
Detroit. Hashtag Detroit right now has, over 10,000 posts, right? So, well, that's new Detroit. Hashtag Detroit has 12,000. Austin's just got, 11 million is Austin, 12 million is Detroit. Cleveland's only 6 million, and Cleveland's up and coming and has been reborn as well. So it just shows you a very good indication of how people feel about the city.
Well, then, since you're an attorney, how do you fit into all this? How does law fit into all this?
So we represent social media influencers who are offering up their endorsements to products and services, events, these types of things. And then we represent brands such as companies that want to hire influencers. And then we represent the agencies or the platforms in between those two contracting partners. And so, as you know, we do a lot of intellectual property law and a lot of copyright law, and an influencer is essentially licensing their copyrighted photograph, typically, and verbiage and hashtag to a brand to do that endorsement. So you've got copyright, and then, of course, if it shows their face, then you've got name and likeness that is also being contracted to the brand. So there's a lot of the intellectual property issues that go back and forth between influencers and brands. And that's how we got involved, and that's how we ended up in this space.
Sounds like a new variety of trademark law, really.
Yeah, so trademark is, it's interesting because we're always telling social media influencers that they need to get their handle trademarked, right? So if you're a social media influencer, chances are it's not your exact name.
Yeah.
And you're operating under this brand that is the @ whatever your name is. It's a trademark. And the photos are copyrighted, so it's copyright licensing.
Interesting. Excuse me. how does one convert all this influence? And you talk about, let's go into that more on that. You pay somebody $5,000 kind of thing. What's that all about?
Yeah, so basically what'll happen is we've seen it much more to national level, right? So we know that Kim Kardashian or her little sister, whatever her name is, makes insane billions of dollars
Right.
from social media influencing, right? But it's global. It's big brands, big names, big products. The trend in influencing marketing is going, like everything else, going local, right? So local businesses in Detroit, local restaurants in Detroit, local events in Detroit that are now connecting with influencers to help promote those events. And then, of course, everyone in Detroit promoting Detroit by hashtagging Detroit or some other variation, which shows a great photograph or a great depiction of something that's really cool and happening in Detroit. So we've got some really amazing influencers in the Detroit area, and I'll give a few shout outs if
Yeah,
you
please
want to
do.
have some
I'd
recommendations.
I'd like to know more about these folks.
Yeah, so there's one called at after5detroit.com, and this is a person who does like the social scene in Detroit, and it's eat, drink, play. 11,000 followers, and if you look at their page, I mean, a really impressive photography, all about Detroit. So really love that page. In another different niche, you've got Metro Detroit Mom at Metro Detroit Mom, and she's a Metro Detroit mommy, Instagram person, and she's got all kinds of great photos that are family friendly about things happening in Detroit. So you can start to see how that would translate into real good things for Detroit. And then you've got J Adore Detroit. That's Jadore Detroit.
Means I love in French.
Yeah, and so entertainment, food and drink, and wellness. And this is a plus-size model who does a lot of modeling, but picks all these amazing Detroit backdrops to do the photography. So, there's really amazing stuff there. And then if you've got, certainly the city of Detroit's got its own social media department. The Detroit Visitor Bureau has 56,000 followers at Visit Detroit, and really amazing photography there. So we're going to start to see a connecting of these influencers with more of the local businesses as they're promoting each other, essentially.
So should we take our M Squared TechCast and throw Detroit in there somewhere? Would that improve it?
I was going to mention this, but you two are influencers.
Really?
Yeah, and are you guys getting paid for that yet? You need an agent?
Good. Money's a fine thing. I always like money.
I'll represent you guys.
I like to get money.
Yeah,
sure.
You're promoting things, and you have an audience, and therefore you have the ability to influence. And so it doesn't have to be an Instagram account. It can be a podcast. It can be a Twitter page. It could be lots of different things that you can go ahead and influence on. And really, the reason I'm here today is just to talk a little bit about how the trend is putting the people, the communities, and the communities within the communities of Detroit and other cities together, and creating some cohesion in order to create those synergies between players, between the influencers, between the brands, between what you guys are doing and brands, across the board. And this is a trend that is really just in its infancy, but it's not going away, and it's only going to pick up speed because influence marketing is really the future.
Yeah, I haven't gotten into Instagram, but I have been on Twitter pretty much since it was established. And so I am actually Matt Roush on Twitter. And there's a couple of other Matt Roushes that would like it. There's a guy who's a folk singer in Indianapolis, and then there's a guy who's the TV reviewer at tvguide.com.
But
so,
too bad our Matt has it.
yeah, I got it first. Although I did let mattroush.com get away, though, the website. But
Yeah, that's tough. But yeah, there's a lot of collision of words and names out there, and there's not a lot of bandwidth left there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, Twitter is sort of this weird amalgamation of, political chatter and advertising and marketing and influence. And I mean, it's to me, that's the most interesting one.
It is because it's got the most non-photographic content.
Right, yeah. Instagram's all pictures. Right, yeah.
And they keep you at least in line so you can't talk forever. So that's good too. So, but Instagram is just photos, right? So it's more than just photos. It's hashtags and photos and a little bit of text, but a picture speaks 1,000 words.
Right.
And in Detroit, there's so many amazing different things that are happening artistically and architecturally, and all of it's being captured online and is being fed into one of these hashtags. And so I have no doubt that that's helping with the rebirth of Detroit.
Oh yeah, I see it most among young people too, because I've got a niece and nephew who are 21 and 23, and they live over on the west side of the state in the Muskegon area, and they can't come over here often enough.
Yeah.
And my kids are 27 and 29, and one lives in Ypsi and one lives in Westland. And they're coming over here all the time because they think Detroit is the coolest thing there is. And they're actually closer to Chicago, really, than they are to Detroit.
Yeah.
So,
And West Michigan's always identified more with Chicago than with Detroit.
Yeah, for now, and maybe that's that is changing. And these kids, these younger generation, they're learning about this stuff on social media, and the trends that are happening on social media are actually happening on the street as well. And that's great news for Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
If one, let's bore into this a bit. Let's say one thinks, take our case for instance. How would we then monetize what we're doing better?
So essentially, you guys have sponsorships, and you have advertisements that you have as part of the web-based broadcast that you've got going on. So in a way, that's a form of advertisement. Everyone recognizes it as advertisement. Influencing is endorsement, right? It's me stepping up and saying, I endorse you, and having a following that is going to respond to that. And so it's a step beyond, several steps beyond a banner ad, right? And so because you guys know tech, and because you guys know what's happening in Detroit, your ability to step in, and you've heard on radio broadcasts where all of a sudden the broadcaster says, and now I'm going to tell you about my pillow or whatever it happens to be, right? So that would be a form of influencing that would be outside social media, but it's the exact same concept. What you guys would probably want to do is to really start to build your following more on, pick a social media platform. Maybe it's Twitter. And then as that following builds, you can pick the brands that you love, the companies that you love within your field of expertise, and then you could get paid money to do a review of them or to promote them or endorse them online by saying, here is a company that I really love and I own these products and I stand behind them as well. And they usually pay you for anywhere between 1 and 3 different posts, and it could be anything from a couple $100s to some of these folks are making 6 figures a post.
Wow.
For a single post.
Kind of like IT and the D. I mean, when they endorse something, it's like Dave drives a Jaguar, don't you, Dave?
Right.
Yeah. See, Dave's been holding out on you. You just don't know about his influencing income.
It's it. He drives that Jeep because he doesn't want people to know, but, he really lives in one of the Grosse Pointe farms or something.
It's that Midwestern work ethic modesty at work.
Yeah, no, we're not there yet. No.
Okay.
Yeah, but then you get into the dangerous fire festival territory when it comes to influencers at that range.
Yeah, that's for sure. And that was a great example of you guys remember the fire festival. They put this big event on that was a non-event, and some very wealthy people paid insane amounts of money because it was a trend. It was hot. It was a social media thing that just occurred online and exploded, and everyone wants in. And that's a great example of what social media influencing is.
And then they wind up on Gilligan's Island, right? Yeah,
right, exactly.
Essentially marooned, right?
And now all those social media influencers are in the middle of lawsuits because the trustee for the festival is trying to get money back because chaos. Yeah.
Yeah, when you stand behind a product, you better stand behind the product, because if you told people to go and they purchase because you told them to go,
knowing full well and good you were not going.
Right, or you didn't know enough about it to endorse it. I mean, you're standing behind the product, and that's where some of the liability comes in. We try and protect both sides and come to a fair accommodation of risk, but you better know who it is that you're getting into bed with if you're going to get in the endorsement game.
We're going to have to cut it off at that.
Quickly tell us, if people want more information on these topics from you, how do they get a hold of you?
Sure, go to Enrico Schaefer at traverselegal.com, and you'll find me online, and we'll be happy to answer any of your questions if you're a brand or if you're an influencer.
All right, that's Enrico Schaefer from traverselegal.com.
Traditional four-year students love Lawrence Technological University's thriving campus life. But LTU has always met non-traditional students' needs too. Lawrence Tech offers over 100 degree and certificate programs that can get adult students started or back on track. And most of our classes are conveniently offered evenings at our beautiful Southfield campus or online, so you can balance your social, family, and work life even while you power up your career. Lawrence Tech, where Blue Devils dare.